Hello viewer, today on this episode of Story Look, I'll be giving my thoughts on the Thunderbolts movie with spoilers. So, spoiler warning, Thunderbolts now if you don't want to hear them. Starting with my critiques of the movie, I mentioned there were some conveniences to get the plot going. Examples for me include when Red Guardian just so happened to overhear Valentina's burning desire to kill off her agents and where they were located. One that got me pulling hairs was Sentry getting his hair dyed blonde in a short amount of time, maybe about 1 to 2 hours before the Thunderbolts caught up with Valentina. He looked cool, but I felt the mention of him dyeing his hair was unnecessary. It's established Sentry had some reality warping abilities, where his hair returned to normal by the end of the movie. I believe they could have made it where Valentina urged Bob to use his powers to become blonde, which would still demonstrate Valentina's manipulation of Bob. But hey, they're just nitpicks for me, and they don't really break the rules of the MCU world. The major issue I discussed in my spoiler-free review was the scene where Valentina introduced the Thunderbolts as the new Avengers to the media. I feel it was out of character some Thunderbolts would go along with the charade without at least trying to guilt-trip Valentina, which Bucky tried to do throughout the whole movie. Yelena did say to Valentina that we own you, which helps a little bit, but still doesn't cover why the others went along with it. I had the gut feeling there were some deleted scenes or scripts to elaborate on this, because the scenes had many quick cuts, and we didn't get to see much reaction from the Thunderbolts, now new Avengers. Consequently, the very end credit scene of Sam Wilson Cap trying to trademark the Avengers feels a bit off. I feel it's in character that Sam would have some friendly rivalry with Bucky and trademark it as a joke. Alternatively, he could be doing it because the new Avengers did bad things and he needs to build trust with them. But the scene came across as Sam being petty and mean-spirited, especially when Bucky talked with Sam and said things didn't go well. Also, my friend, a fan of the original Thunderbolts comic, who I'll refer to as Citizen V, pointed out that it deviates from the original Thunderbolts comic, so this movie may not appeal to fans the same way. In the film, Thunderbolts is derived from the name of Yelena's childhood soccer or football team, which original fans may not have a ball with. B pointed out the original comic Thunderbolts derived from their catchphrase, "Justice like lightning," and not sponsored by the General Electric Company. I can see why that deviation can be unsatisfying. The other deviation is that the Thunderbolts, now new Avengers, were heroes or anti-heroes, either forced to do bad things or were heavily misguided. In contrast, spoilers for the first comic Thunderbolts, those guys were straight villains, posing as heroes for nefarious purposes, but in the end became heroes. With this dynamic, the original appeal of Thunderbolts to Citizen V was that the villains, people who chose to do bad things, ultimately chose to become heroes because they liked doing good. In contrast, the new Thunvengers, we know did bad things, mostly by circumstance, got the chance to become heroes and took it. Still a good character arc, but it has a different feel to the original Thunderbolts. In summary, if you're like Citizen V, the movie may not resonate with you in the same way the original Thunderbolts did. With all the critiques out of the way, here is stuff in the movie I liked. The classic Marvel humor was done well, characters played off each other seamlessly. My favorite bits were Red Guardian claiming his limo was bulletproofish after his car windows were shattered. Another scene is when Red Guardian asked Bucky what his plan was in facing Valentina, to which he replies, "The plan?" with a deadpan face and drives straight into the front door of Valentina's building. The Thunvengers got to show off their skiller moves, and seeing some of their weaknesses helped build tension. Specifically, Ghost phasing her enemies with her abilities were cool, but we also see that loud sounds could negate them. And from memory, she stated she could only phase for about 1 minute until she permanently phases out. Yelena had cool acrobatics, being able to outmaneuver her enemies, even when she was roped into protecting Bob. Occasionally, though, she does drop her guard and gets punished for it. The super soldiers, Bucky, US Agent, and Red Guardian, are pretty much brawlers, with Red Guardian making more quips, and Bucky making the best use of his metal arm. Bucky fighting on a motorbike was one of my favorite action scenes, where he used his landmine gun that blew me away, and being able to overturn a truck with his metal arm was awesome. The Thunvengers fighting Sentry was fun. We got to see how dangerous Bob really is, clearly being able to kill any of them easily. Highlights for me were Sentry almost running circles around Bucky and catching on to Ghost while she was phasing. Now, time to strap in. I'm going to rant more about the points I made in my spoiler-free review. So, for someone that didn't have many tasks to do, Taskmaster shockingly getting killed initially felt forced and unnecessary. However, thinking about it, Taskmaster's death makes us really experience the Thunvengers are definitely anti-heroes, prepared to kill with no hesitation. And, being Ghost's assigned target, Taskmaster getting killed was likely going to happen, since Ghost's phasing abilities give her an edge on the other characters who don't really have a counter to it, especially without knowledge of her weaknesses. So, Ghost killing Taskmaster was the most probable outcome. And for the MCU as a whole, it does set the tone that characters can still die, minus the really important ones, despite all the humor and fun action adventures we see in the MCU. That being said, if you weren't happy with Taskmaster getting killed, maybe if you're a fan, because it was so sudden, or any other reason, a bull thing, I totally get it. And speaking of Ghost, or Ava, her character arc was ghosted. There's a single sentence summarizing her backstory explored in Ant-Man and Wasp. I believe right from the beginning, the film does imply Ava cares about others, minus Taskmaster, but has trouble expressing it. She saved the others from the incinerators, claiming she needed help to use the elevators, despite previously making it to the incinerator room on her own, which required using the elevator. We know what really went down. And she later got a truck to pick up the others, despite being easier if she just disappeared on her own. Towards the end of the film, it's more obvious Ava does care, clearly saving people from the Void's rampage in the city, though she still has trouble expressing it. For US Agent or John, we get a glimpse of his presumably recent memory, where he was phoning it in, looking up news of Captain America instead of watching his kid. Bucky later confirms his wife left him. It's clear John is obsessed with being Captain America again, after the events of Falcon and Winter Soldier. We know he did missions for Valentina, possibly to feel important like Captain America. Throughout the film, we see he's not a bad guy, definitely shoots first, asks questions later, but has redeeming qualities, such as sharing some cactus to eat while stranded in the desert, and taking several bullets for Bucky against Sentry's counterattack. For Alexei, the Red Guardian, we get a glimpse of his current living situation. He puts on a happy face, hiding the fact he's living in a slump, wanting for a higher purpose. Throughout the film, he does act as the team's hype man. Later, he learns to strip away his facade when he has a heart-to-heart with Yelena, inspiring her to be a hero, talking about how she lit up a room with her personality and cared for others despite her harsh upbringing in the Widow program. And in the end, he, for cereal, has his picture on a cereal box he said he wanted in the beginning. As mentioned before, we get a deep dive off a very tall building into Yelena's character. She has that relatable burnout from work, which so happens to be Black Ops work, and making a killing. Initially, she explains to Bob that you shove all those negative feelings down into the void. Her memories in the void reveals she resorted to alcohol to cope with her burnout, and is haunted by her abuse in the Widow program, having been forced to help kill her friend, and seeing other widows getting lashed for not assembling a gun as fast as her. After Alexei's speech and possibly spending time with Bob and the team, the main theme comes to fruition, not being defined by her past, and having friends really helps. Yelena entered the void to help Bob out, and has that powerful line that her troubles felt lighter being with Bob. And we really got to feel for Bob. He reveals he was a drug addict and volunteered for Project Sentry as a method for doing greater things. We see the domestic abuse in his childhood, standing up for his mom against his abusive dad, which is the right thing to do, but we know was a lose-lose situation for him. He still maintains his heart of gold, having distracted the soldiers in the facility so the others could escape, and when he spared the Thunvengers after beating them up, not caring for excessive violence. In the end, the Thunvengers help Bob overcome his literal inner demon, showing him that he has people to help him and can still have a fulfilling life despite his rough past. For Valentina, I mentioned we see a bit of her past, which was of her as a child, watching her father getting killed, and that killer raising her. It makes sense why she does all her manipulation, where it really clicks from her quote, "There are bad guys, and there are worse guys." I interpret her definition of bad guys as people who've done bad things, which is pretty much everyone, And the worst guys are the ones who've committed more heinous atrocities. But of course, her manipulation of Sentry backfires, where Bob's morals conflicts with hers, and having been told he's more powerful than the Avengers, including a god, makes Sentry realize he doesn't need to follow Valentina's orders. And Mel, her assistant, used the kill switch that knocked Sentry out and saved Valentina. Speaking of Mel, she is the Easter egg character for one of the original comic Thunderbolts, Songbird. Though aside from her name, the movie doesn't really allude to anything else about the character that I know of. Anyway, Mel is the main point of view of the political espionage in the film. Bucky played his card to try and get Mel to testify against Valentina, where Mel was clearly conflicted by the atrocities she witnesses. She does help Bucky throughout the film, but in the end she stays with Valentina, raising her worth after knocking out Sentry. I presume she stayed with Valentina because of the bad guy's worst guy speech, and was given a second chance with no strings attached. It's possible, though, Valentina used Mel to lure in the Thunvengers, which could be why she didn't retaliate. Now, to end my rant on some feel-good moments, one where the Thunvengers push over a large concrete slab to save a bystander. Now, for those who argue John, the one who caught it first, should have been able to lift it himself, probably yes. My headcanon is that they were all beaten up by the Sentry, and they were all not in a good mental state at the time. Rocking back to that moment, yes, very cheesy, but a cool, legendary cinematic moment. We got to see the Thunvengers embrace working together, and I think they really felt they could really become heroes after everyone cheered for them afterwards. The other moment was Bob beating up his void self, but literally losing himself in the darkness. The Thunvengers broke out of their restraints and hug it out with him, which calms Bob down. Cheesy, yes, still a feel-good and heart-melt moment where everyone cares for Bob, showing that they accept him for who he is. Final thing, seeing the Fantastic Four ship in the end credit scene was really hype. Definitely keen to take the first steps in watching the Fantastic Four movie. Okay, that's all for today. Hope my spoiler-filled rant for the Thunderbolts movie colored you impressed. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe if you'd like, and hope you see what's in store for next time.